So seminar 8, we're looking at this idea of CAPM. So it's similar to what we did in seminar 7. So it's risks and returns again, but this one's a bit different. So we're looking at the idea of CAPM. CAPM. In question 1, your sister has 50k. She wants to invest in shares. So the market, they're telling you that the return on the market is 9, risk-free. We know risk-free, risk is 0, and they're telling the return on the risk-free is 4. We have share A, share B, share C, share D, and we have this new thing called beta. And what beta is, beta basically means systematic return. So beta basically equals systematic return for CAPM, for CAPM. And basically the formula that we're looking at, the main formula that we're looking at in the CAPM questions is different to the formula that we were looking at before. So this formula is different. This formula is basically just return of the risk-free plus beta. So this is the only one that includes beta. The other one didn't have beta before. The return of the market minus return of the risk-free. That is basically the formula that we're looking at for CAPM for 7 and 8 questions. And we want to look at, calculate the returns that you would receive if CAPM holds. So this whole idea of CAPM, we're looking at share A, actual, so beta 0.4, and the actual return is 6%. So there's one really important rule that you have to remember for CAPM. And there's one, so it's like one really important rule that you have to remember. And what it is risk of the market is always 1. Only for CAPM. So before, they gave us different risks for the market. They gave us market risk was 4% or whatever. For CAPM, for seminar 8, because we're looking at CAPM, the idea is that the risk of the market is 1. And we have to remember that. So this is basically, so beta equals systematic return. So CAPM is all about beta, systematic return. This is the formula that we're mainly using. And this formula shows us, what this formula shows is minimum required return. Minimum required return. That's what this formula is showing. And that's what we need to do for question 1. Question 1 is about working out the minimum required return. And the rule, risk of the market is always 1. For CAPM, the risk of the market is always 1. Okay, so those are the main pieces that we need to know for seminar 8. Start off with question 1. So question 1, you have 50k, you want to invest in shares. Okay, so they've given us some information. So what's the information? Return on the market is 9%. Okay, return on the market is 9%. So market return equals 9%. And they're not telling you risk because we're supposed to already know that risk for the market always equals 1% in CAPM. Risk equals 1. And then they're also giving us, so similar to what we looked at before, so risk-free again. Risk-free. Risk-free rate of interest. So they've worded it a bit weird. Risk-free rate of interest is 4%. What this means is, risk-free rate of interest means your return is 4%, your risk is obviously 0 because it's risk-free. So this is your market. And now we're looking at risk-free. So the return of the risk-free is 4%. And your risk obviously is going to be 0 because it's risk-free. So they've given us this in question 1, and they want us to look at share A. So let's look at share A first. So share A, what have they given us? They've given us 2 pieces of information for share A. They told us that beta is 0.4 and the actual return is 6%. So these are the 2 pieces of info we have. So again, we're using this formula. So RF plus beta, RM minus RF. Return of the risk-free. Return of the risk-free is 4%, we know that. Plus beta. Well, beta for share A, they told us what beta is for share A. 0.4. So plus 0.4. Return of the market. We know what the return of the market is, 9%. They've already told us that in the question. Minus the return of the risk-free. We know the return of the risk-free is 4%. And we're doing this formula to work out the minimum required return. So sub it into the calculator. 4%, so 0.04 plus 0.4 beta multiplied by 9%, 0.09 minus 4%, 0.04. equals 0.06. Equals 0.06, which equals 6%. So what have we worked out? So from this formula, we've worked out that the minimum required return equals 6%. What have they given us? They've told us that the actual return is 6%. So actual return is 6%. So actual return equals 6% as well. So what does that mean? That means that it's perfect. That means that it's in equilibrium. So both returns meet. So actual return meets the minimum required return. The minimum required return. So this means that share A is fairly priced, basically fairly priced. It's perfect. There's nothing wrong with it. It's perfect. And calculate the returns you should receive, make suitable recommendations. So our recommendation is share A is fairly priced, and you can invest in it if you want. If you want to invest in it, you can. So you can invest. You can invest. Because the minimum, so we worked out the minimum required return and the actual return of share A is 6. They're the same, so that's perfect. That means that our returns, we're meeting our returns. Share B, we're looking at the same formula, RF plus beta, RM minus RF. And our returns for the risk-free, we know is 4% already. They gave us this in the question. So beta, we're looking at share B, we're looking at beta. So share B's beta is 0.6. So 0.6. The RM, we know the RM is 9%. And RF, again, same formula, 4%. Everything is the same in this formula apart from beta. Beta is the only thing that keeps on changing. So work it out. 0.04 plus 0.6 is beta multiplied by RM, return of the market, 0.09 minus 0.04 equals 0.07 equals 0.07. So it equals 7%. So that means what have we worked out? We've worked out that the minimum required return equals 7%. And the actual return, what have they given us in the question? The actual return is 8%. So the actual return is 8%. So if we're looking at it on a graph, CAPM graph, we're looking at it on CAPM graph, what do we have? So we know that, so 4% and 0%. So if risk-free is 0 risk, so risk again here, return, 0 risk, 4, and the market, we know the risk of the market is always 1, and it's 9% and 1. So here, so this is CAPM. So for share B, our minimum required return is 7%. Let's say it's supposed to be here. The return we're getting is 8%. So the return we're getting is higher. What does that mean? So for this specific question, it means make suitable recommendations. So they're asking us make suitable recommendations. Our recommendations would be that share B is underpriced. What we mean by underpriced is that it's generating greater returns than what it's supposed to. So greater returns than required. So you should invest in it. Even though it's not on the line, so this is different to what we were looking before. We're looking at efficiency before. This isn't about efficiency. This is about what you should do, whether you should invest or not. And you should invest. You should invest now. Why? Because the price of the share is going to increase. The price of the share is going to increase. It's going to increase because it's underpriced and it's generating great returns. So share B, invest in it. It's a good idea. Okay, it's generating greater returns. Share C, looking at share C. So share C, again, same formula, RF plus beta, RM minus RF. We know RF is 4%. Beta for share C is 1.2. Beta for share C is 1.2. RM is 9%. Remember that. RF is 4%. We know this from the question. Put it into the calculator. 0.04 plus, what's beta? 1.2. Multiplied by 9%, 0.09 minus 0.04 equals 10%. 0.1 equals 10%. So we've worked out the minimum required return. Minimum required return equals 10%. What is the actual return? The actual return is 9%. For C, the actual return is 9%. Actual return equals 9%. So if we're looking at this on a graph, we're supposed to be getting 10, but we're really getting 9. What does it mean? Share C is overvalued, overpriced. It's overpriced. It's not generating. It's not giving us the returns we require. The returns we require. Do not buy. Do not invest or do not buy. Do not invest or buy. And if you own it, sell it, because we don't want it. We don't want to invest in it. That's what our recommendations are. Share D. Look at share D. Same formula. RF plus beta. RM minus RF. RF is 4%. They've given us in the question. Beta for share D is 1.6. Beta for share D is 1.6. RM 9% minus 4%. Put it into the calculator. 0.04 plus beta 1.6. 9%, 0.09 minus 0.04 equals, what is it equal? Equals 0.12, equals 0.12, equals 12%. So we've worked out that the minimum required return equals 12%. Actual return equals 14. For share D, the actual return equals 14%. So again, if we're looking at it on the graph, we're supposed to be getting 12. We're supposed to be getting 12 on the line, and we're getting 14. We're getting higher than the line, so it means share D is underpriced. So we should buy it. Buy it or invest in it. Invest in it. Buy it, invest in it. It's a good idea. The price is going to increase, and it's a good idea. So that's question one. That's basically question one. This is the formula you need to know for question one. RF plus beta, RM minus RF.